Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everybody. I hope everybody is doing great today. Um, I think without further ado, I'm going to start my presentation today. Thank you very much, Mr. Jaria, for introducing me just now. Here, the title of the focus of my lecture or my sharing is on interpersonal communication. And I strongly believe that we do interact every day. We communicate interpersonally every day, without fail, I think. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to uh, provide a few definitions of interpersonal communication first, and then see how can, correct me if I'm wrong, how can we use Tauhid framework in understanding the process of interpersonal communications? Yeah. So let's go with the first slide. Okay. There are many texts. If you go to any bookstore, there are so many different texts on understanding interpersonal communication. The reason why, because if the assumption is that if we fail to communicate interpersonally, then of course there'll be a high percentage. There is a high percentage that we will not be able to get what we want in our interactions. So, in other words, we fail to deliver the internet messages to our audience. As simple as that. Yeah. So this is one of the many definition that you can find, whether online or from any hard copy books. This is from BB and Redman. Normally, students doing interpersonal communication, they use this text, but they might be using a more recent edition. This one was published in 2011. According to these three scholars, bear in mind, the scholars cited here are assume they are Christian from America. Yeah. So the notions of Tawhidic paradigm is not really in the definitions. Basically, it's more on the process rather than the spiritual aspect of that definitions. Yeah. You can see a distinct transactional form of communication involving mutual influence, usually for the purpose of managing relationship. If you refer to any text on interpersonal communication, normally there is one chapter on interpersonal relationship, and towards the end, the last few chapters will be on interpersonal. In the first few chapters will be for interpersonal communication, and then the last few chapters will be on interpersonal relationship. The reason why, because in order to develop a relationship, we must communicate interpersonally. As simple as that. Yeah, and then let's go with another one. This one is by Trenholm and Jensen, 2004, page 24. IPC, or the acronym is IPC. IPC is communication between two people, at least. That is the smallest unit, two individuals, two participants. Remember this definition was developed years before we have new media technology, for example, the social media, WhatsApp, whatever it is, or even before we had Zoom or Google Meet or whichever platform, emphasizing its dyadic, two-way interactions, spontaneous and informal nature. Yeah, that is basically some of the key components of IPC highlighted by these two scholars. Yeah, and then I'm going to proceed further. This is by Pearson and a few other scholars. 2013. IPC is the process of using messages to generate meaning. This is one of the key components if you refer to the models of communications. Without having a proper meaning of the interactions, and of course there'll be misinterpretation, there'll be miscommunications, and normally there'll be negative repercussions. Between at least two individuals or two people in a situation, and that allows mutual opportunities for both speaking and listening. So one is a speaker, one is a listener. When I use the term speaking and listening here, that doesn't mean the listener is not doing anything. You are also as a listener, you are also giving me some kind of feedbacks. If you talk about face-to-face interactions, because normally if you talk with someone, if you notice someone behave awkwardly, then you might change the way you interact. You might want to change some of the info. You might want to get rid some of the info delivered just now. Yeah. Then of course, let's proceed further. These are the reason why, basically, whether for professional reason or just for personal reason, why we try to understand the terms interpersonal communication. Of course, the first thing is for personal life. Yeah, we learn how to communicate better. Yeah, but it's more than just understanding the theory. It's more on practicing what the principles. Yeah. Then you have personal relationship. And then, of course, the last one is professional life. As simple as when you work, if you fail to communicate with your colleagues or other staff properly, then, of course, there is a chance for you not to get what you want to have from that interactions. There might be a misunderstanding. So that is maybe in the worst case scenario, you might discontinue the relationship. Yeah. And of course, those are some of the reasons or the values of understanding interpersonal communications. Now I'm going to proceed further. These are two more kind of descriptions, more on descriptions. IPC is a continuum ranging from quite impersonal. It can be very impersonal, as simple as when you go to any supermarket, when you talk with the cashier, that is very impersonal. Sometimes I'm not even bothered to ask what's his name. That is very impersonal. We are not interested to know who is that person, but it can be very very personal as well. For example, you and your husband, you and your wife, you and your son. So that would be the range. Yeah, from trying to know someone and trying to simply, I just want to finish my business. That's it. Yeah, and then you have another one by Pearson. That was stated just now. Yeah, I'm going to skip that one. So I've shown you this one before when we had our first session. This is basically one of the media models which can be used to understand the process of communication, and this is used for all types of communication, not only for IPC, but that is also used for mass communication as well. So these are the basic components. You have source, you have encoding, you have message, and you have decoding, and then you have receiver. But of course, in a real context, both parties insert in one interaction are acting as source and sender at the same time, as source and receiver at the same time. Yeah, there are need to say there is no such thing as you are the solely sender and the other party is the solely receiver. Because when you listen to someone talking, your cues, your non-verbal cues will somehow give all kind of messages to the other party just now. Yeah. So sometimes when you look at someone frowning after listening to your statement, then you might want to change, or you might want to retract what you have said just now. So in a normal context, we don't really see ourselves as solely a sole source or a sole receiver only. Yeah. So these are the basic components. Of course, you have feedback. Yeah, feedback can be, of course, I did mention about verbal and non-verbal before this. It can be done verbally, it can be done non-verbally as well. Yeah. So let's proceed further. So these are basically the components I mentioned just now. You have the source, or you have a source. You have a receiver. Yeah. This is consequential. But then once again, I just want to reiterate my point just now. In any context, it's going to be very, very hard for you to simply function as a source only. You can be a source, at the same time you are also a receiver. Yeah. Then of course you have message, any ideas that you want to share with someone else. Yeah. Then channel, of course, this is what I talk about your way of delivering the message. Yeah. And then of course noise. Yeah. Can be literal or psychological. For example, literal, if I talk with someone over the phone, something happened to the phone, basically that is what we call as literal noise. But then if if the understanding is very much related to your understanding of the message, roughly we can call that one as psychological in nature. Yeah. And then you have encode. Encode, of course, done by a receiver, sorry, a sender or a source. Then, of course, decode or decoding is done by a receiver, yeah, or the audience in the general context. Then you have context. So you have to know the context of the interactions. Is it in the classroom or is it in a noisy cafeteria? So this context will somehow influence the way you interact and the kind of messages that you communicate with someone yourself. Then you have feedback, yeah, and feedback normally influence the way a source delivers or communicates certain messages. So these are the basic components of human communication in general. Whether you talk about interpersonal communication or in the biggest context, you talk about mass media communications. Yeah. Then let's proceed further. So this is the Tawhidic paradigm that I showed you before in my first in our first meeting. Yeah. So you have this. Yeah. So basically you have, of course, someone said before this also what about human and animal interactions. I would say in the context of at least in my field, because I cannot claim that I know how do people interact with the other creature other than two-legged creature, we as human beings, for example. Yeah. So basically the model is basically, in my understanding, in the context of human to human interactions rather than human to other creatures. Yeah. So you have everything that we do basically should be in line with the principles stated in Islam, whether you retrieve the principle from the Quran or from a hadith or from the traditions of the Prophet. Yeah. And of course, we, as a Muslim, for example, we sometimes look at the stories of the Prophet, for example, the stories of the Prophet as well as the stories of the companions of the Prophet. And they somehow indicate what are do's and the don'ts in interpersonal communications. Yeah. So this is a very simple model. You can add up if you want, because I don't really call this one as a theory, because I think, a theory means it has to be tested. And I personally, as a Muslim, I don't test Tawhidic framework. Yeah, that is a framework given to us to understand the world and what happens in the world. Yeah. And then, of course, so this I've shown this one before, just to make sure that you know what I'm talking about. So Tawhid here refers to this, yeah, provides the principal guide. So whatever action that we perform or that we do on daily basis must be according to the principle which are in line with this particular framework. Yeah. And then, of course, I'm going to proceed further. So Islamic communication is firmly rooted in the principle, as I mentioned just now, principle mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet, yeah, that covers the actions of the Prophet as well as the statements or any utterance or expressions of the Prophet. Yeah. And then if referred to many hadiths, for example, you can find how should a Muslim in particular act should be according to the principle stated in that particular sources. Yeah. And then, of course, these are some of the key I would say key components or principles that we have to know as a communicator, yeah, or anybody who involved in communications. The Quran consistently emphasizes honesty. Being honest is very, very important. Yeah, because if you are not honest to begin with, and of course the rest will somehow affected by our level of honesty. Yeah. And then I think we have heard a phrase that says, if you lie once, there's a tendency for you to provide more lies to cover that lie in the future. Right. Yeah. In that respect, yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you are somebody or a nobody, for example, having a sense of respect to those who are going to receive your message is very, very important. Yeah, even if the person is just a kid or a small child, for example, thinking that they might have not read enough to know to understand my informations. Yeah, but this is why you talk about, if you look at how the prophet interacted with kids. Yeah, the messages of the prophet are very much tailored according to who is going to receive that message. The question might be the same, yeah. For example, there were two occasions in the past, yeah, during the time of the prophet. Two companions of the prophet asked the prophet one similar question on should they kiss the wife during fasting month, yeah. And then one young guy asked the same thing to the prophet, and one old guy asked the same thing to the prophet. And then the prophet answered differently. To the young guy, he said that you should not be doing that because the prophet knows what will be the implications. And then when an older guy asked the prophet the same kind of question, and the prophet says you can do it because this has to do with your self-control. So when it comes to interpersonal communication as a source or as a sender of the message, we should be able to see who is or understand who is the receiver of that particular message. So by doing that, then only you know how to ensure the message is prepared and expressed in such a way it does not offend the receiver of that particular message. Yeah, and then so these are the key considerations, or among the key considerations. I'm not saying that these are the only considerations. There are many. The first one is stated just now: mindfulness and respect. Yeah. Islamic teaching stress the importance of being mindful. So whenever we interact with anybody interpersonally, we have to be there physically and mentally. You have situations sometimes, yeah, where you talk with someone, the person doesn't really pay attention to you, or you yourself, you ask a question, but then you don't really listen to the feedback from the other communicator. Especially when you have when the intention is, for example, when you attend conferences, seminars, or forum, sometimes the intention is just to test someone's knowledge. So it's not so much that you want to really know what is the fact all about. So whenever we ask or anybody asks any question, you have to be ready to listen rather than simply asking question as simple as if you talk about in the context of interpersonal communications, as simple as if you talk about a father and a son. So if a father asks the son questions, and then expecting he knows the answer, or expecting he will try to understand the answer, then of course he must be there physically and both mentally as well. Be mindful. And of course, be sensitive to others' feeling. It doesn't matter who we are, as I said just now. There are no difference where the sorry. There are no. I think there is no difference between knowledgeable person and not knowledgeable person in that context, because both human beings or both individuals, they do have feelings. Yeah. So if you talk about a normal context of interpersonal communication, we have to be sensitive to others' feeling, and of course, because that will somehow affect the following action. Yeah, and the reason is because when you have that kind of take or understanding, yeah, then of course that will somehow promote respectful and considerate communications. You don't see yourself as better than the other person in that interactions. Yeah, and then of course emotional state. Yeah, Muslim must be aware of the emotional state during communications. Yeah, are you happy? Are you okay? Are you not okay? Are you angry? What is your current feeling when you interact with someone? Sometimes when you interact in the state that you are angry, the terms or the words that you use might be very harsh and very negative. And when you are happy, the terms and words that you use or the cues that you deliver can be very, very positive as well, even if the message is negative. As simple as if you as a teacher and you are angry with your student, you know that the message is negative in nature, but if you are delivering the message when you are angry, it doesn't sound nice, and the terms used might be not nice as well. Right. And of course, I think if you refer to this particular, if you are fond of reading the books written by the early scholars, Muslim scholars, for example, Bukhari came out with this book, Al-Adab Al-Mufrad. You can refer to page 245. Um, this one, yeah. One is strongly recommended to refrain from communicating when one is angry. And of course, this is based on one hadith. Yeah. When you are angry, be silent. Of course, in one hadith, the term "don't be angry" repeated 3 times because because there'll be negative implications. So, in the context of interpersonal communication, even though you know there is a need for you to communicate, but your state doesn't permit you to communicate, it's better for you to withdraw from that particular interaction because there'll be many negative consequences, especially, for example, between husband and wife. I think you know, yeah, in Islam, I'm going to pick all these some examples, yeah. If a husband asks, I divorce you once, as counted, and then when you are angry, there is a chance or there is a possibility for you to simply say, I divorce you 100 times. So now it's like you cannot. I think if you are a husband, you know the repercussions of saying that. And that happens normally when you are angry. Yeah. Then, of course, the last one is there are many, not only 3, there are many. I won't be able to cover every single one of them. Then you have contextual factor. Context, yeah, play crucial roles in Islamic interpersonal communication. So you have to know the context of your interaction. Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it just to crack a jokes only? Then of course, objective is also very, very important. You have to know why do you interact to begin with. Because not knowing the objective, the interaction will cause, will create a very awkward moment. For example, if you see a stranger and you want to be a friend of that stranger, the objective is to be friend with someone, right? And of course, if you see your student, then of course, basically, when you ask your student, how are you doing today? You are trying to inquire the well-being of your students. Then of course, you have another contact which is to share certain information, especially relevant information that you feel that you have to share with someone. Right. For example, if you receive a news that someone passes away, yeah, and the reason for you, even if you don't like to interact with that person, but you have to do it because now I have to convey this particular very important message to the other party just now. Yeah. And then these are basically some of the key consideration if you want to understand Islamic interpersonal communications, or you want to practice Islamic communication, Islamic interpersonal communications. Then one of the components which is very critical when it comes to interpersonal communication is self-disclosure. Without this, if you refer to any text, they have this diagram showing you whether that interaction will lead to closer relationship or just once only. In many occasions, you can see the IPC is very much associated with the kind of relationship that you are going to have or that you have with the other party in that particular interactions. Mean to say the kind of relationship between the source and the receiver of that particular message. So one of the principle is self-disclosure. If you have the intentions to develop a relationship, or if you have the intention to initiate any kind of relationship, then there is no other way other than self-disclosing yourself, which is very, very important. Self-disclosure has to be differentiated from slip of tongue, because sometimes we accidentally disclose who we are, not intentionally. That is not what we call as self-disclosure. As simple as when you meet a stranger, for example, for students during the orientation program, when they meet a new student, they say, my name is such and such. That is basically the beginning of self-disclosure. So without knowing someone's name, then that's going to be a bit difficult for you to develop that relationship. So it will end at that point where you just simply say Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. That's it. So there is no intention from your side to develop the relationship further. So if both parties, or at least one party, has that intention to develop that relationship, then you have no other options other than self-disclose ourselves. Yeah. So of course you cannot simply self-disclose without purpose, yeah, without knowing the reason for disclosing who you are or what you are doing in your life, etc., etc. So these are some of the these key issues that you have to consider. The information that you want to share. This is some of the issues, concerning issues when it comes to online interactions, because anybody can be anybody on social media on any social media platform. An old guy can be a young man on social media, and then a young underage girl can be a 25-year-old 25-year-old women on social media. Unless you talk about face-to-face, physically, both parties are there, then of course you can be sure of that. Yeah. So the first thing is the accuracy of information. This is very, very important. Even if you have situations sometimes where someone never reveal his true name, he prefer to use the other names, right? And of course, that's one. Second one is there a need for you to say, is there any, do you have any genuine need to share that information? Yeah, because once you give the information, you cannot take it back. Yeah, you cannot retract. Once it's out there, it's out there. So this is why we have to be very, very careful. For example, as simple as this. I personally, I don't really share my phone number with anybody unless there is a need to do so. But maybe for some of you, that is too common. You can simply share because you feel that is not really private to me. But this is why we have to know why do we share the information. Of course, in some contexts, you have no options. For example, if you have a business meeting, without sharing the network number, then of course you'll not be able to widen your network. But in a very informal context, this is why I talk about the need of the information in that particular context. Yeah. Then of course, the last one stated here is the benefit of sharing information. Do you get anything? I'm not talking about financial benefit. It can just be a social benefit only. Yeah, so you have to really consider the benefit of sharing certain info, right? And this is the reason why basically if you go to any supermarket, you don't really tell the cashier, oh, my name is such and such, because you don't see the benefit of sharing your name, right? Of course, they now we talk about using cards for payment. Of course, they know who are you, etc., etc. Right? But in your context, you see no reason for you to share this info unless you have a context where you have to share the info, then only you share the info. And of course, the other consideration that you have to look at will be these three. In the media, they talk about this: the right to know, the need to know, and the wants to know. But the most compelling reason for me, according to a group of scholars, is the need to know. So the wants to know basically, for example, you and your friend, you talk about someone else, a celebrity, for example. If you talk about the range, the right to know, the need to know, and the wants to know, gossiping about celebrity during IPC is not, it's really under, it's not really needed. That is what we call under the wants to know. You can still live a good life without knowing who are the celebrities. So these are the three categories. These are the three classification of how types of information that you might want to consider before sharing the info. Do you think that the party has the right to know the info? For example, you and your husband, for example, right? Maybe your husband is at work and you are at home, and maybe maybe one of the family members passed away. I think in that kind of context, maybe you think that your husband has the right to know. On the other hand, you have a situation where you can postpone it for a while. Then of course, maybe you want to wait until your husband comes home. Yeah. And then these are some of the issues that we have to know when it comes to self-disclosure. And of course, as I said just now, when it comes to interpersonal communication, there are, of course, the do's and the don'ts. There are many do's. There are many don'ts as well. For today, I'm going to share some of the don'ts as written by Al-Ghazali. So this is the source of this particular writing is Al-Ghazali, and of course the last one is given by Hashim Kamali, one of the former scholars of IIM. So you can refer to Kitab Adab, and you can check this one, Calamities of Speech, or in Arabic known as Afat al-Lisan. So these are the first five are given by Al-Ghazali. The last one is given by, not by me, this is by Hashim Kamali, one of the former professors of IIM. The first one, I think everybody knows, lying is a no-no thing to do when it comes to interpersonal communication. The second one is backbiting. And then the third one is acrimony. And then bitterness or ill feeling. The fourth one is psychopathy, or in Malay we have a term known as membodit, or apple polishing. In English there are many terms. Or you praise someone just because you want to get something from someone. It's not a sincere praise, and we have to be very careful with this one. Yeah. And then Islam doesn't allow us to praise someone excessively, right? Because the reason why, the impact is, if someone is a charitable person and suddenly you say, oh, you are so charitable, and then of course I think we know as Muslim that the moment someone praises you, that you are a good person, there is a chance for the person to have a sense of ujub or riya, or sense of arrogance in that sense, right? You feel that you are good. So this is why we have to be very careful. And then of course we have many examples of this now, yeah, where people simply joke without knowing why. And of course, if you watch programs, comedy sitcoms, or whatever, there are many of this. The fifth one. And of course, this is the sixth one is added by Hashim Kamali, excessive questioning. So that's the reason I said before in the beginning, yeah, knowing the objective of the interaction is very, very important. Yeah. Similarly, if you refer to the 40 hadiths, the first hadith cited in the book is intention. Intention is very, very important. So why do you communicate with that person? Because if the intention is good, inshallah, the outcome will be good. If the intention is not good, then there is a high possibility that the result will be not good as well. Right. So if you refer to the 40 hadiths, you can see the first hadith is on intention, which is very, very important. So we don't communicate aimlessly. You have to know why do you communicate. As I said just now, one scenario given just now, when you ask a speaker a questions, you have to ask yourself, why do I need to ask a question? Because you have to be clear of what is the intentions. Is it to test someone's knowledge? Is it to show that you are better than a speaker? So these are issues that have to be considered before we, or including me myself, before I ask any question to anybody. And then so a bit of this, there are many. I think you know it's lying, you know it's backbiting. And then just to be clear, backbiting is not defamation. Defamation is a legal term. Meaning to say, if you commit defamation, then you can be prosecuted. Backbiting is just between you and, of course, your God. It's not illegal. It's legal, but then there'll be repercussions of backbiting in that sense, right? Yeah. And then of course, acrimony, as simple as this. Yeah. This is why I talk about debating aimlessly. You debate with someone, but with no reason. You have situations sometimes, where the aim of a debate is to find the truth. And that is the aim, or that is the goal of that interactions. But more often than you can see that people debate aimlessly just to show I'm better than you. So this is why you have to know ourselves. We have to know ourselves. Why do we start that interaction? Is there any noble intention for starting that interaction interpersonally? And sometimes if you talk about debate, for example, you can see the hallmark here. Acrimony refers to this one. You try to embarrass the other party just now. It doesn't matter who. Because the aim is, I just want to show that I'm better than you. Right. Yeah. And then that is acrimony. Then you have second insincere flatterer. Yeah. This is the one I mentioned just now. We talk about self-gratifications. You might be sincere in the beginning, but then someone says that you are very good, you are charitable, you are so generous. That will somehow lead to self-gratifications. You feel that you are good, which is, I think, in Islam, without sincerity, we don't get anything from our own action. So it goes with the wind, as simple as that. So you don't get that benefit of doing good. Because the moment, this is why we are not really, of course, you can say that you are a good person, but you have to know the limit. We have to know the limit. Right. Yeah. And then, of course, this one, anger. Because this will lead to this. And this basically maybe within a family setting, you and your son, you and your daughter, with you and your spouse, for example. So this is where you have to know when you feel angry, you should withdraw from that interaction, because there'll be many negative repercussions of that interactions. Yeah. And then this is where sometimes if you are angry with your friend, you start to garnish your friend. In the sense that you start to remind your friend, I have done so many things to you in the past. And then in that context, you have lost all the rewards. Right. Yeah. And then I'm going to proceed further. So these are some of the don'ts. And of course, in Islam, we are reminded to be silent if you have nothing good to say. Right. This, of course, you can simply use your non-verbal cues properly if you want to, especially when speech would serve no useful purpose. Right. Yeah, because this one has to do with, I'm going to go straight to this particular hadith, yeah? This one. This one has to do with this one, this particular hadith. So, whatever that we do now, as a living person, will somehow affect whether you go to paradise or hell. It's more than just getting a cert, it's more than just getting a scroll or any kind of human recognition. So that's the reason we have to be very, very mindful of what we want to say, or what we say. Yeah, I'm going to return back to this one just now. And then there is one. Silence is sometimes can be, not sometimes, it should be, we need to practice how to be silent sometimes. Yeah. And then of course, this is one of the quotation from some, I can't remember exactly which the source of this particular statement. Yeah, sorry. Perfection of faith cannot be accomplished unless the believer abandons distortions in the joke. This one has to do with excessive joking just now. And of course, abandons acrimonious contentions, even if what he's saying is true. Right. There are situations sometimes, yeah, you start to you have the idea, I just want to win the argument only. So now it's about winning and losing. So in Islam, yeah, if the situation is, if a situation worsens, then you might want to withdraw from that interaction, even if just say you are seen as a loser. Right, because a loser may be in the eyes of human beings, but not in the eyes of Allah, as simple as that. So more often than not, we are very much concerned about how do human beings look at us rather than how our Creator look at us. So the goal is very much pleasing the creature, not the Creator. Yeah, and then of course, let's proceed further. This is a very important hadith, especially for me. Sharing information, interpersonal communication, guiding and misguiding. Yeah. So this is one of the many important hadiths that I always remind myself. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu reported, Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if anyone calls others to follow right guidance, his reward will be equivalent to those who follow him, without any reward being diminished or reduced in any respect. And if anyone invites others to follow error, then of course the sin will be equivalent to the people who follow him in sins without the sins being diminished. So whenever we share any kind of information with the other party in that interactions, we should remind ourselves of the consequences of our sharing our messages now. As simple as this, I strongly believe everybody, if you are Muslim, you read Al-Fatiha every day at least. We have 2 times for Subuh, 3 times for Maghrib, 4 for Isha, 4 for Asar. Yeah, we read Al-Fatiha multiple times in a day, and I think you know in Al-Fatiha you have 113 letters. And I think you know the principle is very easy. In Islam, one letter of the Quranic text equivalent to 10 marks or 10 rewards. So just imagine how many can you get. Yeah. If you teach or if you got someone in your interpersonal interaction on how to recite Al-Fatiha correctly. On the other hand, if you share information is very negative in nature, and then somehow the person follow that use that information, then of course the result will be the same. I think if you as simple as this, if you talk about social media, there are so many tips given by social media influencer. Right. With that, if we know this principle, then of course we are going to be very, very careful when it comes to sharing any kind of information. Yeah. And then I have a few seconds left. Then, of course, this is my conclusions. This is basically a bit of what I've written in the. We have a text on Islamic communication, but yet to be published, we are still finalizing the text. This is one of the segments in the text written by me and the other 2 writers, yet to be published. We are still at the final stage of that book writing. So this is the conclusion from my part. Yeah, the essence of Islamic interpersonal communication is encapsulated in the hadith narrated by this particular companion. No one of you shall become a true believer until he desires for his brother what he desires for himself. You can refer to Bukhari and Muslim Riyadhus Salihin, page 236. So this is basically the standard you have to observe if you talk about understanding interpersonal communication from the Islamic perspective. I think, Sister Jariah, that will be the last PowerPoint from me. Yeah, that is the last one. Sorry, not that one. So that will be the last PowerPoint from me. If you have any questions.
Assalamualaikum, Doktor.
Yeah, like it's all right. Yeah. I'm done with my PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor.
Right.
We open for Q&A, Doctor.
Yeah. If there is any question, but I know there are a few comments from you. Of course, you can get the point if you want, no issues. I think that I just comments and no question. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor.
No worries. I'll have a good day, everybody.
If the participant have the question. What should I put here?
No question.
I'm not sure that this is a question or not from Aisha Rashid.
Okay, yeah. What is your comment on the barrage of false information that is being spread via social media, especially on TikToks? This is how I look at it. Yeah. If I can be blunt and direct, yeah, because sometimes it's hard to understand if you the situation if you can look at the situation from an intellectual perspective, because you tend to be you start to use certain theory. Me personally, as a person, yeah, I see this world as an imperfect world. You don't expect everybody to be angel, and of course, you don't expect everybody to be evil. So the tendency for the not good, the negative stuff to be on social media is going to be there, whether we like it or not. So I always advise my students, we are not in heaven yet. We don't expect everything perfect. But what thing what we can do is more on ourselves as the consumer of the information. How do you see ourselves? For example, when you look at the social media, as simple as YouTube, am I right? When you open YouTube, there's so many suggestions to you, am I right? You have the thumbnails here and there. Similar with our social media as well, I think. So you are the one having to decide, yeah, whether to proceed further with that selection or you simply are not going to watch it. At the end of the day, we are responsible for our selections or our decision. Right. Anybody can post anything on social media because you are given the freedom. That is what we call freedom anyway in the real world. So it's like when you go to supermarket, you have healthy food and you have not healthy food, am I right? So you are the one, you have the freedom to choose healthy food or not healthy food. And more often than not, when it comes to food, we tend to be for food, physical need, we tend to be very, very careful. But when it comes to spiritual food, we tend to be very careless. That's a problem sometimes. And we know whatever that we eat or whatever that we consume will somehow affect our spirituality. Right. So because we cannot stop TikTok, we cannot stop YouTube, we cannot stop Facebook from uploading all this. That is out of our control. The only thing that we can do as a person is maybe you can provide suggestion which doesn't work more often than not. It's about we controlling ourselves. You as a parents, you control your children, for example. Right. Yeah. So all these are there for many reasons. Right. So you know the reason why this thing happened, and people are living by making money by uploading all this information. So as a consumer of information, we have to know: is it useful? Is it beneficial? Is it good for me as a Muslim, for example? Yeah. So I have no other suggestion other than we as a consumer of information, we have to be very, very careful with what we eat. I'm talking about it or what. Yeah. Guys, I hope I answered your question, Sister Rashid.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you. Have a nice day.